are Canadian. The bootlegger's friend. Retail price in Anchorage, $7.50 a bottle. Retail price in a dry village, $100 easy. Yeah.
The bottle dropped to the table, next to the gun.
You talked to him? I tried. He shot out the headlights on my snow machine. Uh-huh. Town's tense. You know the Damp Act passed by only 5 votes. There's plenty who think he's just doing business, that he's got every right to make a living, same as the rest of us. No,
Bernie said.
Not the same as the rest of us. No,
Billy agreed.
Bernie, the troopers chasing after some nut who shot up a bank in Valdez, and the tribal police, well, hell. The tribal policemen are okay at checking planes for booze and getting the drunks home safe from the roadhouse. Like I said, the town's tense. Anything could happen.
A pause.
We're not going to be able to handle this on our own. No.
Bernie's eyes met Billy's.
But we know someone who can.
The tribal chief hesitated.
I don't know, Bernie. There's some history there.
Bernie gave the bodies a last look, a gaze equal parts sorrow and rage.
All the better.
The next morning, Bernie bundled himself into parka, gauntlets, and boots, kissed his wife and children goodbye, and got on his snow machine. There had been a record amount of snow that winter, drifting 20 feet deep in places. Moose were unable to get at the tree bark that was their primary food source, and were starving to death all over the park. But the snow machining had never been better. An hour and 35 miles later, his cheeks frostbitten and his hands and feet numb, he burst into a small clearing. He cut the engine and slid to a stop 6 feet from the log cabin. It sat at the center of a half-circle of small buildings, including a garage, a greenhouse, a cache, and an outhouse. Snow was piled high beneath the eaves of the cabin, and neat paths had been cut through it from door to door and to the woodpile between cabin and outhouse. Beyond the buildings were more trees and a creek. Beyond the creek, the ground fell away into a long, broad valley that glittered hard and cold and white in what there was of the Arctic noon sun, a valley that rose again into the Teglik foothills and the Quelaag mountain range. A mighty upward thrust of Earth's crust that gouged the sky with 18,000-foot spurs until it bled ice-blue glaze down their sharp flanks. It was a sight to steel the heart. Bernie Kozlowski would never have seen any of it if he hadn't dodged the draft all the way into British Columbia in 1970. From there it was but a step over the border into Alaska, and some fine, rip-roaring years on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. By the time the line was finished, he had enough of a stake to buy the roadhouse, the only establishment legally licensed to sell liquor in the 20-million-acre park, and he settled down to marry a local girl and make babies and Boilermakers for the rest of his life. He sold liquor to make a living. He coached basketball for fun. He had so much fun at it that Naniltna High School's Canuyak Kings were headed for the Class C state championship, or they had been until Ted McToyak's resignation from the team. Bernie's eyes dropped from the mountains to the clearing. She hadn't been off the homestead in the last 4 feet of snow. He'd had to break trail with the machine a quarter of a mile through the woods. The thermometer mounted next to the door read 6 below. He knocked. No answer. Smoke was coming from both chimneys. He knocked again, harder. This time the door opened. She stood 5 feet tall and small of frame, dwarfed by the wolf-husky hybrid standing at her side. The wolf's eyes were yellow, the woman's hazel, both wary and hostile. The woman said, "What?"
What? Bernie said. What am I doing here? What do I want? Whatever happened to this thing called love?
He gave a hopeful smile. There was no response.
Come on, Kate. How about a chance to get in out of the cold?
For a minute he thought she was going to shut the door in his face. Instead, she stepped to one side. In. The dog curled a lip at him, and he took this as tacit permission to enter. The cabin was 25 foot square with a sleeping loft. Built-in bookshelves, built-in couch.